when God spoke to me, and said, they can do better. The morality of concern where, particularly in the justice system where vindication, and a martyr for true hope resolves the decency of a value. Yet, you are conflicted, as to why my mistakes turn out a right from a wrong? There's no complex value here, there's a message from God, that is spoken for within a more deprived outlook, and the fact of the matter of peace, full living, and careful intention among the planes of this realm, to inquisition, and desire, that only the truth be purged from the wicked, and the disgust, of those who demoralize, change, and the value of correction in observation of a good for nothing. In the most cases, the justice system is a dirty, filthy fucking roulette. You know, you went and done something wrong, so man up to it, and well, don't, because it didn't mean shit to you, or me, or them. The bias incursion. Wow, no other faith? Well, were you here, not there, when disorder and chaos made a lineage, to separate the determination in force? A condition that eluded my safety to fracture the limits of time, and persuasion, to define a moment, between those moments. A more particularly, per se peculiar aspect driven by the Son of Mercy itself. A mentally challenged quota, a more derived threat against punk thugs, all in the same. Man, that's a horrifying day. But, if you learned 1 + 1, and x4 divided by infinite, you may actually get some place on another page, that changes that path, for the greater good of all things. Something about the mathematics, and religion of a quarrel, in good versus evil. Yet, in some cases, you have complete assholes deriving that focal point, of a better change, a hopeful question, and the reality is, I proved that subordination within trust, of the government's correction policy holds an even greater value to the streets for change and contemplation over the masses. In most cases. Sure, reprimanding, and the value of a bastard, is in at all, worse among the threat of humankind. Anyone else, see, where I went with this? Nah? You don't even know me, you have no idea, what discipleship, God had lead under me, to dismantle, your broken rule system, and the justification over the morality between safe distance, and overweight thugs, who seriously are just punking the inequality of Savior, and fate, to show a more desirable patience, and gratuity, to communion, salvation, all these things you're not even being practical over. You label, this shit, God, under which it stands. So? Be like it, and stop pretending to be something you're not. The value, of physical education and continuity to digest, and pace yourself at the only assumption of quality assurance, and this can't even happen correctly? Yet, watch the sickness, of a vicious circulation, circumventing in a wild nuisance among the community to wonder, why that's even a part of life. And it's not genius, it's process of elimination. Well, you're the weakest link? Well, if that cell is as strong as it needs to keep someone in, then you better value the same reflection as to who's keeping it monitored. Facts are, like, you watched me get up, and work out, for years, and years, and years, practicing, a physical outtake on conservation, of energy, momentum, spirituality, a greater response time, than any of you. And this actually pushed people into the corners of their hostile inhibitions to look the other way, and seriously, fag themselves up being out of no greater concern for themselves. And God spoke to me. I will value your retribution, Anthony, your greater outlook on 9/11, and the visual assessment you brought forth, as to what Jesus would have appreciated. I can denominate this strength, with no greater take. Facts? I'm only the middleman trying to stop a fight. And yet, there's your immature child, crying a river, because you haven't gotten it right. The boy who cried wolf, well, about this time, how many have cried word, and the world of wars, ahead of itself? Reflect on your own nuisances to be at an annoyance level of determination, and the facts, of closure decide for itself, that, you could be at best, the reason this shit is happening because you don't value my equality schematics, nor, pay the responsibility out to what acclimated, that distance in time, hope, and safety to find out and figure out and work out more than ever as to how 9/11 could be in our control, and not lest, make a fucking terrorist, a fool out of my life. Over, petty, shitty, focus points. Just saying, cry wolf more? And, the fact is, like, I'm just saying. I'm just in between all of you, sorting out bullshit from right, and wrong trying to help. And you let that kid, cry wolf anymore, and you're gonna shit yourself upside your head, with no better resource, and answers, just like on the same day outbreak converged onto the United States, and left you in a frantic on how to dispel, and realize, this. It was facts. There was an obstruction, in connectivity, and my cousin working in the trade center? Somehow, calls in sick the day before? And somehow, I met, with Jesus a neighbor, and then came back home to destiny. And then flexed my Riffle X in lanes, and sped up and down the street. This shit isn't Half-Life, it's a fucking God-sent movie trip, and the movie was just supposed to be, yes. My lawn, my neighbor, and my grocery store. Yes. Well, too late motherfucker, not that it should have changed, but the consolidation of rationalizing a situation isn't withheld as anything more or less than what makes it a stipulation to serve the country. Get it? Careful now, you may overserve your country before leaking out the brain, and the sides of dumb shit, and reoccur, the same goddamn incident, again, and again, for the rest of your lives. Because you couldn't find a way to be my friend. Granted, shit happens. But what these people aren't doing to nullify, and at least, process of eliminate, that argument between peaceful, in control people, and the other side, people who are mistaken, not able to understand completely, or hunger and thirst for more. They don't either need to be argumentative, at a neutral point of reasoning, so why put me, in between everything as a problem, nevertheless, over freedom and fight for something better. Like, got some crack spackle dog? Cues, it really looks like that connection here is drawn out to, Jeff and the seriousness, of a inequality, driven, into madness, and your options? I don't care about Jesus. LMFAO. This is what distorted the reality, a simple car ride, to Stagecoach Lane, and around the bend for survival at Mission Road. No upheaval, at any given point, wouldn't have defined this battlefront? A greater relativity. But bound to no better worth, and well? Just check this out. Convergence, of everyone's life on my shoulders. And you don't even give me money to supply basic interest for a demand in safety. Car, home, simple supplies to take care of it. And that's what you got? So, you got fucking served Middleton, and the fact is, write a fucking letter to Congress, and see how much they give a damn about your bullshit. Right. Sarcasm is a greater good in valuing mistaken concerns over taking a serious negated notion to someone playing me like monkey in the middle and my dog's tail, was your 9/11 bitches and that son of one, if not the caged marine dog that it once was, foretell the value of a soldier's story and innocent propaganda, that this day, in virtue of many other innocences, was bestowed that greater good, but you still aren't respecting it, because of these variables. How can someone really not wake up knowing where we live? Flash drive motherfucker. And question this. I already told you I was in the middle of people's lives and a situation where resources may incur a more positive relationship, and watch it do nothing. Meanwhile, just one of the more important dividing mathematics, and while I was at the center of one? That's funny as fuck, bruh.
Here's a fancy topic. The hot dog in a Holloway costume. Be like bro, if you don't believe that being overweight isn't needed, and it's paranoia. It's no better than making fun of someone with a dick. Look at the headlines, what else does it say? Most likely, nothing at all, something very presumptuous, but it has to make sense somehow at a better degree of drama yet, there it was. You got like, one reason to live, peacefully in your homes, with a car, a local grocery, people that will fucking deliver it for free. What's this all about? Blocking off, charter, and blood flow and digestive mass to the heart. It sounds like suicide. It's one thing to assume you need more water, or be like buoyant and midriff of things, to feel cozy, or more vaporative, and be like, alright with that skim trip of a lifetime, but, just like lizards, with the scale coat, we absorb the sun and dry measure of hope between that which, nevertheless, doesn't truly affect longevity, just simple conservation of things. One thing to consider, wow. I have nowhere to go, I'm barely moving 2 miles per hour, why am I out of balance? Fact is, most people aren't congenial enough to accept the facts or disregard hospitality upon hospitalization. There's an innocent bargain for Ninja Soldier. Like, kind of ridiculous, but check out these points of interest. The argumentative type? Diluted by the measure of mass and hydration? Like. Sounds a bit stale at the ends of dim-witted. Wasn't it the same for war, and the solution to mankind when violence wasn't really what people want to do only when you have to do it? The mark of the soldier. Pretty much the same guidelines here versus God, and what appendage humanity has going on for it, but hey, this won't take missing the affect, and how this would relay one topic to another, had no comprehension on deliverance, where the education system fails, as it moved along either way. The Sabbath day of your own firstborn being sacrificed to the gods. Like, wow. Check out this physical fitness shit show. I be like, so uptight, that the nervous string of indecency be failing my body at times. Wanna see the bright side of a more brilliant point of view in war? Lamau. Well, a more renowned figure would show for something significant. It doesn't matter though. The headline in the EMS here was, Subject Biology Competent, Mass Development Resource and Your Life, being on the line, because at any moment the bladder and liver can't exert the force to actually filter the shit not processing. What do you think happens to rotten food in the cabinet? But, it's okay to store it in my anus for 3 more weeks than needed. Something to honestly really consider. This is like basic detrimental knowledge affecting people's lives where a relevant power is in choice of reason for the more conventional sides of living. The fantasy factor? Well, this isn't 1952 anymore. The war of determination in some areas for household appliances, not so much be the delinquency, as it may have been foretold back then, due to a severity in economic changes, and of course, many of the nuclear bombings that retain a motive or procurement for a flight or fight response, in lapse of greater and worse damages. Shit carries on for a lifetime. But you're only here to really move fast enough to compensate that activity for so long. What's it worth to you? Or the future? The future is you, Lamau 1. Only one thing can truthfully be said about distance, in a light-speed realm of focus, entangled in regard over what God implies, and does for this world, and I think it's beckoning to resolve itself, but the fact is, people don't really believe in Jesus. Well, what if I could stir your mind up to retaining that inclined memory? Remember? The one where I mapped out in your mind and made 9/11 a fucking bitch, got years ahead of myself and still caught puppy syndrome in wake of a pattern of enlightening definition to consolidate such measures. Be like, do you really think that this is something to be ignored? And then seriously, go right back to puss and shit, subject biology competent, mass development resource Mel. Reliable, getting along. Semi-competent, is the world you're looking for, not truly enough to amass 100% yet, but working to get there? So why front some internal lobe on being something you aren't, while I'm here watching it happen that way? Everyone got their reasons, but subject biology competent, mass development resource says a lot of other things about self-help and cognitive reaction to give a damn when appropriate. Complex life. You will never understand it. You're either lucky you're rich, or happy you're poor. There's no real median gray or right, and wrong from this. I have met thousands of people since an early development cycle outside of educational practice to comprehend the value of a friendship, for what it's worth, and serve you loyally over the years. Being diluted and delusional over a precipice isn't exactly fronting a storyline within the limited topic at hand. And still, just be fighting for some kind of light in the dark because it only made sense. I am not going to argue with kids who believe in a malicious attitude on fronting a battle cycle, when the reality is kind of what it is, and, like, as I go paying the way to endow a reality over a delusion, all you got is hood thugs acting like it's the way it has to be. When the alternative was try being extra nice to your friend while he's here, and hope to God it prevails somehow in the aftershock of this existence. I hate to say it, but the expressive context here is in due form of your second chance to reappraise Jesus and do the right thing, but it looks like all you did was give Jesus a sword and shield and X-ray eyes to look at the woman in a red dress, and left no other choice of reason to not comprehend the value of having a real friend at all. So, who do I have to be kidding? When the facts where you're dealing with a convergence of information at my point of view, everyone around me, and somehow pertain the absolution of a numbnuts, and the fact of the matter was, just do it. Lol. Repentance isn't a sin or a martyr when choosing to affiliate treason with certainty of your front lawn going brown, and somehow having to plant some seeds. But, that's the outside resource, and the violent, terminal illness of a war front, in plain sight. Lacquered plates, wow. That's some definition.
What most people think is that asking questionable reason upon the truth is what exposes it. There's no conspiracy within our government, just elicited protocol and understanding a situation drastically blown out of proportion. Sure, America should be responsible, but how far into responsibility do you think humanity has, truly? The vast reaches of space and time, no one is God, and no one is that smart all the time. The least I can say about these attacks is for my own personal effect between all of this is that the exploitation of reason is justifying the cost of benevolence within a spiritual distant site of controversy, where physical damned presence of humanity is within a deprivation of fear under which it stands. Pretty basic adult responsibility upon being a child and growing up with our educational experience. However, facilitating a response to my nucleus at a center divided attention to manipulate in a sense the emotional response time of the people in my life, there was an insincere residue, but nothing beyond just familiarity and projection of top-grade athleticism and general living ordinance. The only problem here is exposure, where the suffering of a friend entailed taking my life by surprise, and none of the less letting down the situation out of formidable hope to decide the outcome. It's a war between sight and numbers, an affiliation of definition, but the only real grace, aside from anything, is being a friend. The truth though, mathematical, exploit. Pull me out of the hellfire, and show me who I am. The fact. Being a center of attention is a physical representation of everyone's actual limits to a theory of reach, and between anyone else. This was enabled in doing so, a conflict of interest arises between negating a desperate attention span towards finding hope, and grounded leverage to find survival more practical use of time, where getting along in such means meant sacrificing hope for an outcome, and then recovering from that outcome after citing the lost cause of interest, the war front. There's no conspiracy. Assuming responsibility, perhaps, but no conspiracy here, eludes any actual proof. We were behind that, because we aren't behind a financial headway of my own life being able to find predictable means to a very lucid understanding, under God, which it stood, in a complex communication of development. The theory isn't so much a theory, at given points, the heritage and backbone of this effect be substituted, and subsidized as controlled at this point. There was still just a matter of basic relay races though. We are brought up to be responsible, and pass information. Although, this may look humorous, the facts of passing gas in munitions and explosive outlook isn't very necessary, when, the ideal format of passing something more familiar, is a decent distribution of momentum, and self-help over the head way of sacrificed lives to say the least, about this, and really just go to show that a desperate act of crime was just to expose what a friend had missed. Getting ahead, a jumping conclusion. A defeated purpose? Perhaps. The choice is yours and mine alone to live by. The reality is, having a center divider at relay in control of figuring out a problem, and attentively provided that the justification of that attention span is well acclimated, to a point of trust, to familiarize the situation and decide that these acts of terrorism were almost inevitable, and the facts was drawing out a special power of mathematical force to derive the proof of that experimentation. A sad, illustrious moment for Americans. But don't be hidden by the truth. I am still alive, and there is more hope than ever to ride off of, knowing what has been respectfully represented here since I cited the conditions and provided analytical reach towards questionable conspiracy, and thought of what may have happened. The important thing is to move forward, and remember what to do after this happened. Closure isn't enough sometimes, you just gotta move forward.
The point of all this current up-to-date shit is seriously know what you're talking about before talking it, because if you're not even sure, there's a decent clue that you're never ready for what is real here. When people make stupid mistakes on irrelevant factors of living, such as making judgment errors on visual complacent regards, and, even as best, when I tell you ahead of time I'm going to do something and watch a fool out of misery and no shame, take bait over the interest to find a subtle meaning behind, well-achieved fortuity, and the balance of perfection goes to really say what it is after a doubt. Pretty much, you all got some major problems with physical fitness, so, a game isn't even important. The facts are, like, between most certainty, a game has error. Not everyone can just sit at a game station and perfectly play a multiplayer game, because it's a role play in real life. It's not like playing Super Mario on a 2D scale, where the game is really easy to defeat if you concentrate. So many people act all hard and high and mighty on WoW, and all the time, I've seen it happen. Do you even know what a dick is? Be like, so, you seriously want to take it to this level? And really, you don't even understand the complexion of a grace and determination of self-respect here, during times of a hard struggle. Be like, with this information, a dick cleans my house every week. The fact was, I had a bitch to top off the cherry with that dick doing its thing. Be like, where at what point should I not familiarize a fucking incompetent person by showing what it is? Like, you come into my house, starting a fight. There's no real steadiness at sound and texture of reality where a dumb shit can even speak at astounding levels of enthusiasm, within this realm of science, working as a doctrine, to fulfill promised lands, what it deserves within a government system of equality. I'm just saying, 9-inch nails. Like, bruh, bite the hand that feeds, and defeat my purpose, why don't ya? It makes no sense, really. The entire point is, like, there's no or mistaking the point here at all. I'm a professional person. Just because I miss a target, or don't win every round, and every time, doesn't mean I have my mind set on mindful things elsewhere. Seriously, when a jerk comes at you for no reason, almost every week, for no reason, and be like, honestly, how can you expect me to not converge on a decent format of comparison, in a world like this, based on strength and survival instincts? Survival of the fittest. Yet, I'm pretty fit, and you just heard a flimsy douche come at me like a zombie. So? Let's take a gander at an honest report of physical demeanor, capitalizing on endurance and strength to survive rationally, and then subsidize it by saying, if I was a zombie from I Am Legend, coming at you diseased out of control. The familiarity is? Why the hell are you forgetting how to be a kid while you still have it going? Be like, y'all don't get it. Physical activity justifies the means of exercise, and temper, to retain focus and longevity in case of immeasurable stance, to gratify the existence, pleading for, a forgiveness between God and humanity. Let it go. Go be, that little bitch who never could. I read, the little engine who could. It don't matter, like, for reals, the examination of what is real versus what isn't, and responsibility comes to context, and be like, passing around secret notes to fuck people in the brain out of one-upping on survival. I'd rather take one like Jesus and seriously bounce the fuck out. The truth is, all this has to do with polite interaction, and no one is ever actually capable, not even myself because of my anger issues, with understanding the complication between someone now, not even carefully managing the same perspective, but let alone know, its anger is an issue tempered by an acclamation in knowing what is right, thus being not even my problem, really. It's the old expression about the cow in the middle of the road, you're thinking, that cow is dead, so he better put it out of its misery. Just like any other living creature, a person in a coma. It's the same thing. Honestly, I wish I never had to think this way, because it would mean people living as best as one can, but since it's not, it's just easier to compensate familiarity by acting upon my own self-interest of bettering my situation, rather than destroying the structure I have going on for me. But really, when in doubt of all this, you just had simple dumbass, not being comprehensive in the outtake in physics, and the familiarity of action and reaction, aka, you're taking a full glass with a half-empty glass already enough to suffice in elapsed time. Be like, it's what it is bruh. And you're seriously mad, you're not keeping up, and I feel that, but I can't feel bad for you, knowing that I have to take care of myself, and that's reality. Be like, where do you get these people and begin flinging them at me like dead corpses to feel bad about? This is why I never wanted to return to gaming. I was better off magically getting a car, a pair of skates whenever I needed them, and just moving on to my own business, without wonder, deviate to sustain that right, and carrying on properly. This wasn't really fun, and why? And seriously, capitalize on this, you fucking douchebags.
The look of devastation. Wow, you graduated. You got out into the real world. Had some basic training, and told yourself, you were prepared. Reality check. My boss keeps telling me to hit the gym, be a cool person. Take better care of myself. Look at the fucking Joker, bruh. I received basic training. Did it prepare you for the rest of your life? The whole point here was understating the regard for physical health, and the massive crisis of blocking off organs and skin tissue from having reflective circulation at a fresh momentum of digestion, and this dude. Well? Hypocrite? It's more like severe mental issues, and a drastic ploy to harm citizens, and a disaster crisis, at no better point of interest to not even give a shit. Number 1 way. There was, executing physical demand, either in common practice, or substitution in greater response to simulate, at least what it means to. No one told you? I'm sorry, I don't have the time, or money to put you in check. Questions EMS, and, what you think you even know is capable, or possible to take care of oneself, with God's vindicated words, and hero art, thou world of words, that make it comprehensive. And the shit stains of life, get up for work to slave away, at the belly trade, and the only real need, was, to be proactive. Too late? Too soon? I don't care, the point was, that at any given point in time, there was significance, where working out and figuring out a problem, in the USA, was substantial as making 9/11 a fucking bitch, literally draw out a chimera with hundreds of people beyond that the shadow of a doubt between millions of others, to make a difference. Where that rabbit hole goes no one knows. But let me give you some sparing good advice, when you break away from the circulation, of circumvention, and the reality of a 9/5 and I have, the ability, to contrast, and compare, what that bitch is like. Would I lie? In conditions like this? Man, so. Be proactive, and stay strong. This kind of gym enthusiast shit is so basic. When you're in 7th grade, a best friend gets swelled in the face wearing a skeleton mask that pumps fake blood over the frontal area, and it's done by hand, and then another person cracks it, setting it off into the garbage, like it was worthless, because it was just broke. And just be like, there's something called an inside job. And that's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about 9/11. Are you sure that it's not just sponge cakes, and the organ tissue not having the correct fresh balance, and the purge of the wicked, was just your own ass flailing out of control, before long due, recited death was imminent, and the ass of area, was just not even in comparison of what, basic training could afford. Millions of dollars, go into people's lives, to provide safe measure. Yet, the only questionable, acclamation to success, was taking care of yourself, physically first, and then, mentally at a job. Really pisses some people off, demented, issues. What's wrong, sport? Don't like a good run for your money every once and a while? Not trust. Try and get over it, I mean. Just sitting back watching the world consume itself, since you had consumers' rights.
Wouldn't anyone agree that anything outside general government facilitation would possibly be interested in such a pyramid of rank and absolution in authority over the demeanor brought on here? The facts would be like, anywhere else you go, the rules are what it is for a reason. But bring the information here above anything to someone who is challenged by being ready for this kind of information, and call me crazy or whatever, for talking out loud about it and hearing myself think. But, it seems to me, that the wondering eye would say, that general clerk responsibilities may be different, to upper management, and other participants in the years oncoming or ahead of ourselves? Am I too unafraid to state my business clearly? Or, persuade swing, in motive, that what governs state and federal business on a score of what we do as participators, go to seriously say, what challenges the ideal substance of typical daily value general use of authority and time, go to say, about responsibility at all, when what governs basic rules, we could always say, yeah, that's equal rights, and everyone has to do it. But go to say something about responsibility and the power of redemption, and special interest, that people who serve a role in it? And it's just like saying if I worked at the DMV, would I have to wait in line? Obviously, never. Something like that would entail the infringing, cringe, of supremacy, wear in my shoes. The facts were, you have me labeled as a Central Intelligence agent doing things to night scope and bend time around planning efforts and comprehensive detail reporting upon the entirety of the global solution here, by giving a damn, and caring somewhat about risk and measure. Is it really that argumentative, to think, that what challenges the mind, with success, be not given, the proper respect? The utilization of familiarity and temptation where, in any way, shape or form, dignity, upon equality shows interest in those, putting more out on the table, than just the general working force. What does, really genuinely protect the ethical balance of damnation here? That's all I'm getting at, is in my point of view, maybe you all don't completely see, what I'm seeing, or done what I've done, but the simple paraphrase right here, was generally spoken for what it is. Got myself, in between lives here, and somehow. It'd just be like saying to one of my very best friends, does it feel alright, that having a super secret agent friend, as a partner, okay, with raising children in fairness of such supportive reach? I mean, the scale of admiration, to a point of perspective nature where the letdown was at a collapse in visionary techniques, and the reality was, having to devise a plan around, the significance, takes a toll on people's lives in the long run. And still, just be like, looking out that window curiously asking myself, what's really the solution to mankind's problem, When it doesn't seem like any extracurriculum action is being taken over as what you could clearly see, as a power figure, or better to say the least over, a good person, going out of their way for another, in a highly gross dividend, of helpful interest. Be like, the ending point of view, at any second guess, is how can someone be so blind, to not notice, that one is in the middle of everyone's life? This realm is based on mathematics. There I go again. Lost in train of thought. About to let one loose. Because I knew too much. Too much? What is this shit anyways? The figure of being at the center of not one person's attention but everyone's, and the sticky is your clueless kid. With independence on the waistline, being all dumb about a waistline. And it all sounds the same. But it don't take anyone without eyes to clearly see, or get up and walk around me, and prove it yourself, that I'm clearly here in the middle of people's lives, providing rational solutions to basic problems for my peers. And well? The shadowing unforgiving force of financial quarrel between what can happen or what can't. This is just kind of a meaningless productivity scam. Truly, deniability, questionable thought. It's why you made 9/11 a conspiracy theory, and there I stand, figuring it out as the anticipation of a clever 1 or 2 string of attention spans gave way under a breach, to give a shit, about my family's businesses, and entertainment reach, and be like, now I gotta worry about where I live, because people on my own team, won't figure something out. This is really hard to cope with, figuring things out, while working out and exercising balance and figure, on a physique inquisition of carefully monitoring my diet, and being as focused as I can to intentfully be there for one another, and be like, you know you don't have to be like this, but you could still recognize, the fact that anyone with capabilities can tell, or see, that being in the middle of a monkey in the middle scheme, isn't very friendly. Money argues without a doubt of questionable rights to safety, at a determination of everyone's focus. It's been proven before. The question I have to ask is, why are you running away from my significance in this? And causing an all-out war and argument over the same day's fulfillment. Generation X comes along and recites, life's a bitch so deal with it. And now that's not clever enough to serve in the army, and believe that a cunning innocence, to scoping out years of planning behind comprehensive exercise, and rational doubt to figure in determination isn't a prevailing monitor, over the sacrifice provided? Just doesn't add up. It's seriously confusing. It really goes to question, why you got me thinking you're my enemy at times, and pushing myself too hard, is just another person's weak excuse to not help out where they can. It's just like that. Stay up on things. And, well, I don't see my own one-over departments, even noticing, so. Just kind of sad, on a day like this, where freedom at the balance of insurrection and heresy to find hope is satisfied, within no recollection of helpful insight from those carelessly making it the problem it is here, and have nothing to show for the overwhelming stress you have me under as, trying to shoulder everyone's problem to give some sick shun, in asking to stop, and pretend like I shouldn't care about other people every day. It's called the mule trick, and that dollar bill carrot, just keeps on coming every day, and regardless, everyone has one, but you got something special here, and it's just like your punk ass wanted to steal the ticket from Charlie, and the chocolate factory now is your business for the taking. Just saying.
And just be like, why is this such a big deal? National hero, we erased his mortgage to see if he can withstand the battles of life and death, and alas, we were all that person's friend until the end. And just be like, dangling that dollar bill carrot, trying to get me to move. The fact is, it's just what it looks like, and it's kind of disrespectful, when looking at my own dad, and being like, is this shit even real, dude? Like, I wonder what my other dad is thinking. The other father figures around, be like, I can't help but question moral, and pushing ahead, be like, one person wants to strive their best, and work really hard for something. Keep going until you reach a goal, Just imagine though, being at some delicate scenario where you had to, and you could know doing it, was specifically, for a friend, who had gone out of your way for the bigger picture. And just kind of sit on it. While, someone responsible, could help, but, chooses not to. And really, the below information, I made 9/11 my bitch. And collaborated, for 17 years, beyond that prepared myself for this before my life expectancy before Desert Storm was an initial response to assist, it was, proactively be a social weapon. We're not friends. We are survivors. And just be like, wouldn't it look better, if we were just friends? Be like, there's that acclamation unto, 9/11, my bitch keeper, and there art thou, my friend in life. Maybe, per se maybe it was equally determined, but less strenuous to say, like, oh, no woman no cry? Sing a song? A lullaby? And just really go on to think that no money, no cry, is really working with a label like that, and it's a federal instigation upon my own head, to familiarize, the weight of your shoulders, as governing, a source of creation, to its destination, and back in order to salvage, a title report. I mean, this is weird dude, a fucking magic marker appears, and no one touches it, I try using it. And you wind up getting burned by stranger danger. Be like, it's not anyone's real problem but an assumption that morals are kept up on than it is, and some cold-blooded stern crazy person actually existed. I don't really believe that, so convincing some other commentary here, would be accessible, to those who may be listening, within life itself, but nonetheless, paying attention to the real regard here. Like, you should really open up your heart a little bit and stop treating me like a stranger. It honestly feels like you're taking advantage of a situation where, putting in a lot of effort gets literally no output back in, and the fact was like, in a survival game of finances. Be like, I truly thought, friends were more important. Where does the scale weigh out the difference when weeding out legalization over convincing eyes at a procrastination level not give the same draw and on the same day's hope to convulsively find a weaponized person in reaction of your own living conditions? And just toss it aside, like it don't even matter, because somehow, that's how things became a reality, and somehow, someone doesn't give a shit to listen, so? The only pretend hallucination here is paying dues, and the math is what it is when it sells out over the ticket and decides, well, if I can denominate paying dues at a wrap and wrap shit up on a consolidated measure of my friend's hope, then I may actually be able to recite Jim within hope to provide that kind of problematic value to the donation basket case. Just be like, I'm really not trying to lie about things, but acting like, pushing myself like a soldier in simultaneous regard to opposition, the forces of innocence, and military life, to find the answers both sides deserve. And found a wellness over it all. Like, it's just not being taken seriously, and one individual's survival means them all, and, the reality was, exponent that a greater rendition of a central focus, it's a much greater threat, and the draw out was, really. That's all you have after 9/11 being shot out of the history as a pleasantry to find happiness in pursuit of things. And give me some nonchalant, I can't do anything for you? Just weird. One person's salary, written off, out of millions, and you can't consolidate for shit, if you ask me, because you don't listen closely enough. And it takes all the spuency to care, and watch, someone still, not care. Lamau. Roller coaster? More like, shitty pathetic game someone's playing in their own mind, as the expressed subject line here was. Magic marker bust. And you couldn't afford missing this daily value.
This shit continued on some kind of like, parody, in on the cul-de-sac intentional thought of, that guy who is pretty damn cool, super smart, we should go ask that guy for advice on things. And just be like, in this fucking nightmare dude? Nah, it's not even happening. The truth about it was, pushing yourself to be strong as you can, still wouldn't rub off on those who are capable of doing the same, and to think, it's for your own good, in the long run. The message was clear though, in a parody, where in the hood we had someone clever, or witty to say the least about productivity, or essential living regards. And just go take a fucking assembly worker from down off the patchwork, and promote the kid instantly at no gratification of a measure within itself, to believe it can do the important tasks ahead. It would just be like, look at this outweighing skill measure, you have someone professional as fuck, literally brilliant within my own determination at most sufficient regards to do something decent with myself, and you give responsibility to punchline no goodies, for what reason? Not trying to make anyone feel bad, but morally at consumption of what is withstood at effective ethics in life, and to act careless with them and place mistaken responsibility in my hands and not understand them. Do you see the contradiction in self-support? It's like, you had all-star on your team and you let some retard deny them the practice of being the best you could be, for no literal reason. When you needed all-star to perform, and be like, yo dog, we gotta handle shit now, let's move on out. The facts were pretty subtle, and your unproductive indecisive, relay race of handing responsibility to kids, made this entire mission way more complicated than it had to be. This has to do with outweighing the difference of thought. It's not so complicated, but overcomplicating it is making my life a living hell. The facts were, how can someone determine, one person, in the middle of a reality, and be like, I could just be anyone claiming some bullshit, when on the other hand, it could be utilized effectively in communication, but you don't want to put yourself into a position publicly to put strain on the effectiveness of what goes in one house or another. But what if raising awareness made something so surreal seem yet so easy to understand? If I was a sheriff, I'd be fucking baffled by this. A friend comes to my aid, in risk and mistaken measure, finding all kinds of problems with the system, and wants to help, finds creative ways to help a situation out of his own control by all means in no one's control, and then comes around to a positive gain after a trial of mass hysteria. And when in doubt, the reason was, sure, what if everyone could just get along, and no one get in trouble? Was it, the sheriff, mad and angry there was no one to bust? Or it was just a cup of tea unsettling at which points boredom cracked the hope of light and day? Or was it, enthusiastic, to embrace the format of controversy, and believe that it's lucrative to assemble idiots, in line of their own responsibilities, so they can get a cut? Be like, really, why even play the fucking cards this way? But the reality was, I like keeping to myself and keeping an open eye over things, in relay of a selfless hope to contradict the value of my supremacy between civilian and military advisory. It's the best part of being in the middle of all of this, and having indefinite results with a research and development process to ensure the effective conductive hope of a greater educational process and procedure, by testing the format of living conditions and by all means, utilizing faith in numbers and mathematics due to it. All I'm saying, is how can someone deny me for what I'm realistically living my life as? It don't make sense to General Foreman who got a 9-6 job? I don't think so. The point was, just being ignored, when more satisfying gratuity could be implied here, a little more fundamental in spending, and a reliability, to keep it in trust of things after a fucking terrorist revolution period settles down? And you come home to a broken unearthed realm where people can't even be friends because I'm stuck in the middle with no money, right? This would be the significance in why Americans, simply said, as bad as it would sound, got what you deserved on 9/11, and go to show that the same responsibility in sane living conditions not even met after clasping on control and finding reason to determine better guidelines. It just falls through the hands of people not willing to step up and do what's right before shallowly finding themselves hiding in authority roles. So what do I tell the sheriff about the practitioner and the unsettling debt of the mistaken and desirable take on constructive productivity, and the weakness that stirs, not just mentally, for a figurative relation, in relay of happiness, but a destructive self-inflicted wound of sundering dismay and physical animosity? The facts. Just trying to make things work. Don't leave your all-star bro behind, for reaching into the Bible and digging out God's news for the kids. It's not complicated, yet it's hopeful, so it's complicated. Labert's true, is the concoction, why even deliberate? Gonna watch the next year go by anyways, with the same people, the same goals, and justify that I couldn't have a sane, safe watching believing, and remaining ready and true to any calling ahead. This is why I find my financial situation fucking retarded. And those who can help, kind of pitiful, because this was a federal solution to an international crisis, and no one, except myself, and maybe a few others understood what I had to believe in.
As strict as it is. How does 9/11 sound? Do you see anything? And then just go straight to the source of its congestion, a city, literally. Made up of the resembled action in movement. And, you don't sound like anything good at this point. LMFAO. The entirety of a security risk, a damnation to uplift the odds and move on. Yet, basic survival skills be bypassed, in order to watch people suffer, in doubt, over the training programs instilled to really change the world. And you're honestly thinking what? It doesn't sound like anything in life? While 20 miles out of this location people had no idea, no real understanding what happened on 9/11, and some boy picks up the pieces of its devastation for you, building a context behind beneficial hope in a war zone of unfamiliar light, to find reason here, to believe in a better future. And whoops, there it went again. Just keep falsifying allegations that my embodiment here wasn't central intelligence converging on a point of interest. Remain as subtle as can be, but let alone, not disturb the protocol of strength and wellness, because that's not, alright. And still, go as far, to decipher of lead? And enterprise? And dash alone, as a friend could stand between another and vote nay, on I can see that fucking person. And let alone, not describe that 9/11 itself with a dash in between a square root to a beginning point of pi, rated, information where a man, once stood 11 floors above the ground working in your title industry ordering payoff demands for this closure, to relatively justify the means of a bitch, Monday through Friday crying a river over having to work, too hard, because the complacent actions of exercise were somehow, ruthless, and missing the point, because of a dire need for substantial disregard, and the facts were, all in the same day. You may not be aware of it, but I have, a friendship sensor, a sensor, in my brain, a point of vision that mathematically determines what a friend is. Have some guy literally name himself Monday, get banned on some inline skating forums, and go out of line, to fuel up the day after the middle of the week, and discuss, liberal terms here. How, the hell, did it sound bad, closing in on coming to arms with a satisfactory recovery? Something to think about, later on, now. Maybe? LMFAO. Just be like, why is the relativity, in science, and social studies being drenched in a wasteful resource of my time, talking about why the substantial risks of physical activity aren't within people, to digest properly rather than, create a false ideology and momentum of suicide, blender. Same fucking day, the same dishonor, that I have to face, my friends, with children, living desperately healthy lives, and try and justify the rational hope of being their good guy friending, and befriending the wildest choice to be proactive and give a literal damn about physical health when, that was most important, either way, pushing for patience, and not being impatient, about the loss of determination in someone's sight. So there's how bad it sounded 17 years ago when you could pull the visual tenacity out of this forsaken town, and all you had was a fucking bigot who couldn't answer a call themselves, and elude all factors that your friend wasn't a bullshit coward, and the facts were at an atrocious rate of forgiveness. It only demanded one simplicity, and that was to have the honor of getting along with your friend. And still, deny me this right. After provoking hope at an incentive, to curve the history and the path of our heritage, to careful concerns, and all you got, is an ambassador, being a complete nincompoop, and the fact was. Damn son, I think you said enough.
not enough room for repentance. The fact is, in light of forgiveness of Jesus, within this kind of world, everything is mistaken. But go to redeem, substantial risk in backing it up. And, like, the renown, is, not being full of shit and the dude be like causing drama, yo, cut it out, quit lying, and fronting bro, you're full of shit. The idea was, it was just, a point of honesty, but the fact was, if you were overweight, your body was literally being halted from processing food, or mass, effectively to retain fresh circulation, because too much meant too much. And the reality is, God gave everyone a scale, a mental balance of coerced belief. It didn't change the natural ethics of life though. Be like, seriously, prepare for anything, meant being ready to run your ass off in case of worse conditions happening, and Planters is gonna tell you to get fat, and be slow? Even though it made only one difference in 5 different categories. First, eating fresh sustenance. Second, mobility. Third, self-respect. Fourth, conserving energy. Fifth, was just simple getting along and being mindful of the potency of our technology at this date. So it comes down to it, and like, as bad as anyone says it is, as worse as anyone claims denial, it may not mean shit to you, but to me, the only thing that I could figure out was figuring in the process of working out substantial harmful lingering excess, and forcing control over the lapse of proper digestion. When in fact, the cold-blooded moron will always distinguish frailty and biased belief that these accusations are even subtle. The fact was, you watched me shapeshift on multiple occasions, working out the next visual concept eluding the factor of a deception against Americans to international claims of heresy where values when innocently barked up the wrong tree as. Just be like, the cold intuition of hot people. Oh my god, you have serious mind-fucking problems. And there it was. And there it went. And you wondered why you don't care? Ha 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 ha. The entire point was right in between that message. Clearly not giving a fuck nor even deciding that your friend is even right, was all in itself the hesitation and morality that comprehension, and or caring about one another could even suffice, but go to show, that even in worse conditions of hope, the facts of the matter still lay subtle dominantly active over the precipice and nothing will change the outcome of the bullshit, and slander, being mocked and provided as something anything less cordial even if you couldn't afford it. None of the less, still. The entirety was still factional, disbelief, of what Inquisition the safety and concern went on the behalf of people making and taking wild, and less mild risks on a day enlisted in history that could easily remark the damned as what this came down to, and still. All I can say is, it's really sad, at times, watching a bunch of clowns, overeat themselves into a coffin, literally making themselves horrifying. Be like, I'm kind of overeating. But I wax off my meals with a substantial running block, cutting out the difference, which is kind of more or less substantial within the comparison being distributed, as malicious hysteria and conspiracy goes to cover the golden road of a brilliant age of people learning to cope and deal with life as it is. It'd just be really hard, there was, being right, and being wrong. Come to reason with a goat, and being fat, isn't right, and talking it up and around the game, for whatever reason those people decide to do with themselves, is just a shame. Be like, this is what I learned, listening to all the friends in the world, use it as directions with negative factors interluding the skeptical aspirations of sacrifice and dignity, and if tomorrow I had to settle down, and just live like any other day, I still wouldn't choose inactivity and slowing my heart down by putting in more food before I can let go of what isn't being used. LMFAO. Gas, fluids. Just saying man. Pretty sick. Still, the very next moment was so non-optional. Go for a long walk and lose some weight? Be like nah fool, then go be a stupid ass, and tell God you're forgiven because he don't like you. I mean, I have to be honest here, the sound, in creation of someone that incompetent. Whoa. Just blows the mind. How many excuses revolt in retaliation over the facts of being nice, or cool about change, but the sickness was real, and denial would never elude any self-help for the next generation, and this was all you could do to try. I mean, of course, I could harp and try other forceful methods. But isn't that what the challenge is worth? With a sick federal government, and politicians lingering and ask over the insignificance of hope here? Just be like, patent this asshole, get fucked. And the ideology was, like, in the same practical moment of inevitability, it was still such a distortion in rights that I could only hold certainty to within a desperate measure, to try and care, but realize this. Denial, is that fucking pungent. And like, dude. Seriously, you're fucking up. Clearly? If it hadn't come across, that backed up poop in the body, wasn't creating more of an area of effect. Just be like, oh, another year, and swelling in the last 2 months of shit and piss, because it can't escape, in the crevice of digestion. Wanna see proof? 8. I can't prove it to you. All I can do is show you what my lower abdomen is doing to properly move food at a decent rate, while if I were to sit here, like that, with 60 pounds of fat, fluid, and undigested food, hanging out in my belly. What do you think happens over the course of 2 years, when it slowly backs up and can digest? Yes, it's called heart disease, because the body can't live off of old nasty unused food, killing itself off in your brain like buffeting it to blue cheese, and skipping the greens for just the blue cheese, for months on end. Just like shelf life, that's stale nature of creation, food was only meant to be used for so long in natural order. Why is it okay to say this to people? Because by the time they're 40, it's too late, and being old was a given? We man. I'd rather die than be a slow, dumb, asinine douche, pretending as if nothing in the world would show value in fate over what measures the quality of a friend here. Or, don't take my word for it, and perhaps, saving the world wasn't my fewer, and even to say the least, my safety out of this hellhole. But like, me. Fucking piece of shit. And that's all it ever meant. Only hearing you pause, and whine, about the significance of working out, and keeping up on yourself, to digest, effectively will go to say and show what happens over the course of the next 10 years. And just be like, nah. I'm a pretty good farcer, I've done this, been training to be this, and I'm not a bad liar, when it comes to my own health conditions, when the fact was slipping off the edge just to do this, alone was within procuring safety means for my own self, let alone understand what another is doing, because it's the same human vessel copyrighted by God. Just be like, hey dude. Peace out thug B. Fucking phagmatic doctor advice, the fucking critic, the Fagopolis of dumb shit, go lie a stinking dream bruh. You think you have 9/11 honor? Think again, man.
Questions a doctor's motive. Check at this diagnostic guideline. The reality of sorting measure can't be distinguished by weight alone. By defeating the purpose here, saying, overweight is healthier. Lmao. You just don't get it. Being over the weight by physical activity is why that makes sense to be healthy. That's because the body gets proper digestive circulation and muscle concentrate if performed properly. Sitting around overweight slows that process down, but doesn't change the weather of night and day, and the issue of having some kind of crevice not overfull, or purged before any kind of real new digestion can circulate. This is a radical solution. Prepare for the worst kind of thing. This is like saying, don't get overweight, but stay under the levels of being able to distance yourself very long in the Sunday. This is just like saying, yes, sit around preparing yourself for a hike, but don't get up and move along. Lmao. Just stack the weight. It's just statistics. What do you know? What do they know? You know nothing if projected analysis of activity, or productivity of a cellular membrane, so these numbers don't really mean anything, and in a learning age, the distinction in format where reality is played as a front. Go get healthcare rights. And you're too trustworthy. Lmao. Nonetheless, I'll keep in mind that my own embodiment of suffering has everything inclined to living a positive, athletic lifestyle where being overweight was in control because my body was actually imperceptive sensory of what to consume, and how to move the food around to take on new food. Overweight is being a joker, slacking, and none of the less, the determination repulsed from not exercising properly. Will critically raise the chance of death, because of lack of movement for the heart to start a new generative blood cycle. You're not escaping hell by throwing people under into hellfire. Just trying to control God's power, and be like, y'all seriously need to get some motivation to get the right help and stop misguiding people like this. This article is fucking off like no other, and people go around thinking that it's right? Ah. Wow, murderer. Slow and easy in the brain. Granted. You can even keep up with an example. The point of this is you're saying you're over the weight, and the sound conflicts your context to understand the physical precipice behind exercise and momentum. FFS. This was like congenial to believe in 1776, when the only way to survive was to pad meters. It's the 21st century where you can facilitate gym needs, and the almighty hamster wheel. LMFAO. Just funny as fuck, man, get with the program. It's all random number generation and the slightest bit of control meant taking a vantage point of what you can control, and that's not being a bitter stale snail, slowing your heart rate and digestion process down while the will of fire is still beneath you at strength and beck and call to do so. The real message is drawn in at, weak ass bitches. Lazy, stupid as fuck, wanting to die before it meant to, rather than take the appendage of safety in holding on tight for dear life. LMFAO, but you don't see that with how things roll out and the figure of balance ensured, that you're just in a hell platform, and the chaotic indecency of savior is just to let it go, and have a good time, which actually meant an amended sick time, because the fact was, that was substance D, and the drugs behind the science, eating, and wielding no believe that overweight, was just over the weight. More Ovaltine please. It's a fucking organ that makes noise 24/7. Your hearing is off. Omow, kill or be skilled dude. Manage. So bury yourself smooth criminal status? Or even at best, if that is the truth, risk not taking on old age for any longer than inevitable for, sick, as fuck. Be like, this nasty creepy crawling douche, floating in poop, and urine not purged. That's being overweight, and the skin can't handle the sun, the light beneath achieving physical balance and control of a chemistry set, omow. And again be like, yeah. That's because some normal cat decided to fucking swiftly forget to eat for days, and weeks to stay on that figure. And not exercise to find momentum and stretch of the activity. I just find that stipulation here very eluding factors, as people will most likely believe in numbers. Yes. Believe in numbers at the scarce rate, that determining those numbers got you fucking in a murder suicide innocent redemption plea to mankind, and somehow break away from the bitch as if it didn't mean shit. Lmao, but still, none of the less, comprehend, that volatile strength in moving water, and sustenance meant clearing out the digestive tract as it goes along, and efficiently pull together and away from prior meals by getting ahead in the same days. Guy who sits on the couch overweight is literally not getting fresh nutrition because of a statement like that. And needs to either give up, or get help into exercise, and find a means to doing it. The whole point was, in order to focus correctly, exercise and withdrawal from overweight promise, was remaining as agile and functional as possible in a drama called War on Planet Earth to survive. Not slow the brain down, and forget that it's still working. Just 'cause your ass don't wanna deal with getting motivated to move more, then sure, take slow ass option B, and be overweight. You still won't sound right. In the end of defining your moment, it will be that you were overweighting. And not patient enough to control the weight of that weight entirely to process what is needed to even make do with what that is. So this is saying like, Tony Hawk is going to die before an overweight kid challenging themselves with no activity? Highly unorthodox. Nowhere in this article does it disclose momentum as an exercise. To at least give people hope or pose the interest of what that is. shit's way behind your time frame, this is murderous shit here. And now you have your eagle eyes issues. Just saying shit like this, is how can you not understand settle? The entire motion behind contradiction, and the momentum of force where, the factors ahead, show that, insignificance of one or another, movement is the power that biologically satisfies, the mixture of the heart, and organs to be able to function properly. The will of the fight was in survival aspects, and the hunt was somehow substituting that with something more beneficial. This is just like the oil and vinegar shit out of an Italian dressing bottle. How bad is it to really comprehend that the need for one part of the body's fluids to make it to the next? Sit there overweight and it's like putting blocks in the pattern that was well worth off being in movement. But as you see, the pussy attitude and bitch-like regard for significance, at those points of understanding where, flopping around, don't really work best. It's not just saying more than it is, when disclosing information like this is incorrect. People waft through propaganda all the time. The entirety of my responsibility is to find and cover stories where elusive nature can affect one person's friend to the next and between that discover new ways to participate effectively. This is just one thing I can come across and be like, big deal man, that's super insincere and missing the point here. And this is coming from someone who smoked and did drugs like a madman for the better first half of my adulthood. Just to go and say, at no disposition am I ready to give up the facts we're in stretch of saving your own attention span before none, keep myself alive, within that, and this is what came up with responsive figures. Like, not gonna lie man, that's just a turn of the worse, and biding time, where vengeful thinking and abominations decide to hold disgruntled force in accusation over what this all means, goes detested. That's no way to support God. I'm just saying, it's risky, to transformation jutsu, and set aside 90 pounds, of lost footage, to return into Bruce Lee, and then ask questions like, how'd you do it, fate? Faithful desperation, to allocate, and code overtime for a bitch. LMFAO. Not even fun apostrophe in .y. But it was. And it still is, so the hanky laughter of a joke in life not even being sincere as it is quiet, and entertaining because of someone sick and ill-willed, at which points these disclosing evident forms of missing content and characters to learn from properly get, well, intruded and protruded upon, because that's evil mistaken forces taking awareness away from the reality. It's called being confused. And as blind as it may sound, the rogue ninja in the balance of things was sitting right here before you, contesting the evidence of a lost nationalist, in supplement of the desire to inquire so much more. And then bust into a 180, after that 90-degree turnaround, and refreshed? And I'm patched up like Humpty the motherfucking Dumpty, and it's on. But none of the less, not up until it reaches a 364 revolution flip party, but the facts were, being stepped up behind from what that is in about 3 days doesn't go to show for what this would attain for. Is just a joke, a conspiracy within itself to not nostalgically do what is concerning in balance or fear of what is deserving. Do you know why it's overweight? Because if you're overweight, the challenge was getting into shape, to get overweight. And recycle. Super long seshperimos.
And just be like Jesus. Why do humanity evolve? Jesus. Why does it make anyone a G, us? Oh no. All hail the denominator Satan and the food monsters. The only message here is, innocence depiction? And seriously, the issues you have with supporting just a normal condition to eat politely, go too drastic in safety over community effort, and contradict the meanings, for gangsters to have something to fight and toss and turn about in fun, in favor of that condition for no literal need for shit, rather than peace. All within your casual innocence the decree of these discretions exists, and the facts were pretty simple. If God had a message to salvation, and the reality was, that you got people performing inappropriately, the entire view here is that circle jerk in corruption is real. Let alone, go serve notice, to the public and explain politely what that is. The only sick motive is just seeing the point of interest decide. You're too lazy to get up for a walk once in a while and purge the gas and space between meals to make it a safe digestion process. Literally. The grotesque figure of imbalance, and racial slur and determining other evident factors where the instability of your forefathers goes to some anticlimactic sacrifice, over being worth less, and overstaking that just living a worthy life, upon such things, as anything to do with serving good. It was just silly biological data that only made sense to take better care of oneself. While all in the same moment, the disaster of withholding food not digested properly and eating before the body can really endure another circulation, it puts stress on the fluids being circulated in the brain over time, kills someone sooner before later, because that transfusion of fresh consumption hasn't arrived yet. And in momentum, doctors all around the world get no bitter complaint, spank the ass, and say on your way. Have it your way, Burger King. No one gives a shit. And this point was mostly intended for pacifiers around the place that want to know what that is, making the world a horrible place more than it has to be in the mental stigmatic rouge of significance that just bent people's ideals out of proportion. In no regard am I one to force someone to understand, but relaying information where counted to protect national security at the middle of your life to comprehend the difference finds subtle disbelief in all areas of someone who justifies their work as a job, something responsible over, and poorly do it by acting like being a fat Nimrod jerk is actually worth providing support as. Excess bile, feces, and urine backed up and clogged in the body, screaming in pain for the last breath of inhibition to actually have the dignity or honor sufficing where functioning properly was first priority, and you let retarded people take responsibility. By all means, defeat the purpose, and still, not comprehend what the emotional outtake here was, as, I'm gonna act it out. And then work it out calmly, and your department here couldn't handle that. You swear. You think you know it all, but then, when God arrived, and made you a fucking bitch to observe as the incompliance measure of safe regard for citizens, was your own missing responsibility, then, you've been served a notice. Fact is, pretty much, where this all makes common sense, the reflective buoyancy of being alright, wasn't alright. A sick fetish, involving immature placement on how to live day to day, when no manual labor be needed, was somehow prevalent to the fucking sicko with 76 pounds of shit and piss hanging off their skeleton, and in need of a syringe and long recovery process. Yet, you still think that's innocent and protecting lives, while the message of God is residual, and the satisfactory means of playing it safe was get it right or get the fuck out. This wasn't just a puffy chest concern, a little determination to get you by. This was stuffed bear, full of shit, backed up between meals, and a second guess. Overflowing with temptation, you fled with a gun to your own brain, screaming horrifyingly to the public dreams